It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
The Big Ten Freshman of the Year!
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
If you look at how the men and women did it, the men, the portal opened up the day after the round of 32. Same thing with the women. Men on Monday, women on Tuesday. Why can't they just do the day after the national championship game when the season ends, next season begins, then you open up the portal. All teams have completed play. All bets are off.
Betting above the rim, only on Sport.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Happy Monday. Get ready because we've got the Final Four coming up this weekend. We'll recap all of the games in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 here on the show. Gilbert McGregor will join us, courtesy of Sporting News. Coach Young will also be along. Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. We got a stacked show here on this Monday. Not to mention, we had our first weekend of the Major League Baseball season. Some very big surprises, some long home runs, to say the least, in the Bronx. We'll get to how that happened, maybe why it happened as well, if you're not following along in the story. And of course, touch on everything in the National Basketball Association as well. But first, let's begin with the NCAA Tournament. Some fun coverage again this weekend. But wouldn't you know, all four of the number one seeds are headed to the Final Four. That is crazy. In fact, this hasn't happened since the last time that the Final Four was in San Antonio, Texas, which is coming up, of course, this weekend. Favorites of 6 points or more are 32-2. Straight up, and 22-12 in the NCAA tournament. The only two outright wins of big dogs, Drake and McNeese State, which was the very first game of the NCAA tournament. Go figure that. But that's where we're at. So let's recap them all. Auburn, wire to wire, was one of the best teams in all of college basketball, especially during the regular season. Janai Broome ended up having 25 points in this game. He did get hurt. I believe he is going to play in the Final Four, but he did injure his right arm. He came out of the game, came back and played. He's got about 5-6 days to get healthy. Final score was 70-64. They ended up beating Michigan State. Very close game. First half, Spartans took a 8-6 lead, and then the Tigers went up 17-0. And then Bruce Pearl, as you see there, he cut down the net at the end of the game. Certainly Pearl very happy that his team is back in the Final Four. What a great season it was for Auburn.
I guess the first thought is there are 4 teams in the country that are left, and Auburn is one of them. And so we couldn't be happier. I want to congratulate Michigan State on an incredible year. We saw them in Maui, and they were good. But I don't know that when we saw them in Maui that you'd look at that team and say, hey, they're going to go 17-3 in the Big Ten. And they did. The Big Ten was good. And I thought Tom and I talked before the games, our teams kind of mirrored each other in many ways, the way we defended, how hard we play, the way we try to, dominate the backboard, so on and so forth. But I felt going in that we were better. I felt like I had better players, and I felt like we, and that's not a criticism at all. I told our guys right now, we haven't beaten a team yet that I thought was better than us. And that's why we're the overall number 1 seed. And now we're going to the Final Four where there are 4 1 seeds. And I think the 4 teams that are advanced, I think they're the 4 best teams in the country. That doesn't obviously always happen. So
it could be that doesn't ever happen, basically. And to see these teams go to the Final Four has been a chalky tournament, to say the least, because on the flip side, Houston had no issue with the University of Tennessee. Volunteers only scored 50 points in this game. Houston's defense was great. The Cougars are headed to their 7th Final Four. LJ Cryer had 17 points. Emmanuel Sharp had 14 of his 16 points in the second half. It's the nation's top scoring defense also holding them to 15 first half points, the fewest in an Elite Eight since 1979. How did Houston get it done? Head coach Kelvin Sampson said playing great in the conference definitely helped.
We're playing a tough conference. I think going 19-1 in the Big 12, 10-0 on the road prepared us for this. Because the Purdue game was kind of like a road game. Tennessee with their fans, a little bit like a road game too. But our kids are kind of calloused to that, and so kudos to them. Really proud of this bunch. I think the reason why we've been so good over the years is we've developed a great culture that our seniors adopt and make sure that our young kids and new kids buy into it. We're kind of a homegrown program. We bring kids in as freshmen. And it's been a secret sauce of ours. And, we've had 2 kids the last 2 years in the portal, LJ, who came from Baylor, and Milos, who came from Oklahoma. But their character and their willingness to be coached the way we do it, and their maturity, I think has really helped.
Now let's go to Saturday's games, and one of the games was a blowout. The other one was one of the best games in the tournament thus far. We'll start with the blowout. Duke crushed Alabama. Crimson Tide picked a bad time to have their worst offensive game of the season, just 35% from the field and 8 of 32 from three-point range. Crimson Tide going home. Duke is moving on. John Shire, his first 3 seasons making history, 89 wins, 2 ACC championships, 2 Elite Eights, and 1 Final Four. Really impressive game for Cooper Flagg as well. Shire talked about his team coming together in a different way than other years.
So couldn't be more proud of the team as a whole, their attitudes the whole season from day one. I think this group has been different. They make fun of me. I keep telling them, don't change. Don't change. Keep being them. And I thought the story tonight, against an incredible offense, and Nate does an amazing job with their offense and the way they play. It's like nobody else. To hold them to 65 points is incredible. Watching them play the other night, they score 113, 25 threes. I think the biggest thing for us was not to take the bait of getting so spread. 3 Youngblood, Holloway, and Sears had 21 of the 25 threes. And so for us still, we want to use our length and size, and these guys did an incredible job.
I think it's kind of something that I've said a lot through this whole year, is that we just have such a talented team. Each night could be somebody else's night. I think tonight Khan kind of stepped up and had the ball a lot. We ran a lot of actions for him. Tyrese was huge for us. I think it's just having so many talented guys on the team. It's not going to be your night every night, and just don't hang your head. Just keep playing hard. Somebody talked about just winning the 98%, doing all the little things. So just not letting the shots affect anything else you do, and just knowing that the rest of the guys got my back and are going to make those plays.
And finally, one of the wildest finishes of the NCAA tournament had to be between Florida and Texas Tech. Red Raiders leading 75-66 with under 3 minutes to go. Walter Clayton goes crazy at the end of the game. So did David Haw, and Florida wins 84-79. That was the final score there. Also, Maryland head coach Kevin Willard. There was a reason why he was ducking questions, I guess, last week. He's headed to the University of Illinois, or Villanova, excuse me. They've made that official, and so Maryland's going to be looking for a new head coach. Villanova has found theirs. Jacob deGrom is back for the Texas Rangers, and he made his start yesterday. It was a successful one. 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks on 73 pitches. Tough start, by the way, on the flip side, as they beat the Red Sox. Rafael Devers is 0 for 16 with 12 strikeouts. Craziest game of the day yesterday. I don't know. Maybe it was the Marlins, but some people think it could have been the Diamondbacks. They scored 8 runs in the 8th inning. They beat the Cubs 10-6. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hit a game-tying 2-run home run from Arizona, and then Josh Naylor knocked home the winner. Meanwhile, the biggest surprise of the weekend had to be the Marlins beating the Pirates 3 games out of 4. They walked off in 3 of those games. Insane. And also the Toronto Blue Jays placed Max Scherzer on the injured list. He tried to make it through his first start of the season. Unfortunately, he could not. All right, in the National Basketball Association, a rare big fight that went into the stands last night. 5 players, 2 coaches ejected between the Pistons and Minnesota Timberwolves. Detroit lost head coach J.B. Bickerstaff, Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, Marcus Sasser. We're going to see suspensions from this. Dante DiVincenzo was involved, so was the Timberwolves assistant coach as well. We'll keep an eye on that this week. It could affect some sports betting options. How about this surprise Saturday? Taylor Jenkins, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, was fired. They're 43-30 on the season. I didn't even hear an explanation behind it. Kevin Durant is going to have an MRI with a left ankle sprain. The Suns lost 149-108. The Rockets, if he's out for an extended period of time, that could end the Suns season. And without LeBron James, the Cleveland Cavaliers have reached 60 wins for the first time ever as they end up beating the Clippers by a final of 127-122. And as I said, the Cavs have 60 wins. There's still several games left, but 60-15 is their record on the season. All right, coming up next, Gilbert McGregor joins us from Sporting News to recap college basketball. Look ahead at the Final Four.
You are banking on a guy that's got one Sweet 16 berth in his career.
How many years has he been a D1 head coach?
What, I think 15?
18.
This clown is walking into that tradition. Let me tell you something, bro. You just stepped into the hot seat, because if you don't turn it around quick at Villanova, they're going to boo you out of there just like they booed you out of College Park tonight.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Gilbert McGregor is with us to recap what ends up being one of the most chalkiest NCAA tournaments of all time, honestly. I mean, all 4 number 1 seeds are headed to San Antonio. This hasn't happened in like 15, 20 years. Gilbert is with us. Needless to say, Gilbert, I think from a watching perspective, it's good. We're going to get a lot of good teams in the championship. From a bracket perspective, because I think most people participate in that, they're going to have to wait right down to the last game. But, there's a soft spot for me for all of these Cinderella stories. We just didn't get a ton of them this year.
Right. I don't know if it's just a one-year thing where we won't see any Cinderellas, but the lack of upsets in this tournament certainly took away from some of the madness that we're used to seeing in March. But you said it, having all 4 number 1 seeds who were clearly far and away better than the rest of the field ensures some high-quality basketball in the Final Four. So even though there's no upsets, I think it'll be exciting to see these teams get after it in the Final Four.
Oh yeah, I mean, in the end, we're getting the big name schools, very specifically the Duke Blue Devils, who either you
Mhm.
love or you hate. There's really no in between. I mean, they dismantled Alabama 85-65. This game was not close, Gilbert, and I'm stunned that the Crimson Tide only had 65 points. It was like their worst offensive performance. So I guess this is the way that I'll start with you. Do you think it was Duke's defense that ended up setting the tone here? And was that the reason why Alabama didn't score? Or simply put, was it just the wrong night to have an off night for the Crimson Tide?
I got to give Duke's defense a lot of credit. And I think that's what makes this Duke team so special. They defend really well, and then offensively, they're really difficult to guard. And what happened was, Duke was scoring so efficiently. Alabama was trying to keep up, and Duke was making it difficult for them. And that's kind of been the thing all year for this Duke team. They can beat you by outscoring you a lot, as they did in that Arizona game when the final score was 100-93. But they can also limit your offense. And Alabama is a very potent offense, limited to 65 points. Duke with a 20-point win over Alabama. I expected Duke to win, but I didn't expect them to run away that way. So I think there's a way to go out there and beat Duke, but it's not outscoring them in a track meet. And Alabama tried to do that, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, they definitely could not. Cooper Flagg, 16 points. Con Knuppel, he ended up leading the way with 21 for Duke, and certainly all of those players will be a factor. And by the way, the games in particular, I think that's what the stunning part of this is, that if you think about it, the game against Arizona was the closest one they played when they beat them 100-93. Every other game, more or less, a blowout. All right, so the Florida Gators have now had two huge scares on their way to the Final Four, one against, of course, UConn, more than a scare against Texas Tech. Honestly, Gilbert, I was watching this game thinking, my gosh, is this it? And then, this guy Hall got really hot, and Walter Clayton just hit all these shots down the stretch, and they end up winning this game by 5 points. I mean, Texas Tech is not going to sleep well for a while here, knowing how close they had to get this one coming. But it seems like, this Gators team is at least a team of destiny for now to get to the Final Four. And I would guess that if they have their best A game going into this game this weekend, they'll probably get to the championship.
It's crazy, Craig. We talked about this after the UConn game where I said, sometimes you see teams on their path to winning a national championship. They have that one scare and they realize they're destined to get there, and it's smooth sailing from then on. Well, it certainly wasn't smooth sailing for Florida against that Texas Tech team, and it seemed like Texas Tech was well on its way to advancing to the Final Four, and Florida really did have to dig deep. Walter Clayton Jr. showed exactly why he is a big-time player and All-American, and the type of player that national championship teams have to have on their roster. I think back to that go-ahead three that he hit, just kind of finding where the three-point line was, looked pretty similar to something we see from a different guy who plays at the Chase Center pretty often. And the fact that those guys just stepped up and made big plays and took advantage of the times where Texas Tech couldn't make plays, that is championship metal. That is championship DNA. And I think that they'll play a little more freely going into the Final Four, having been tested 2 times now on their path to get there.
Yeah, and Clayton, by the way, is just ice in the veins at the free throw line. 13 of 14 yesterday from the free throw line, got fouled down the stretch. Texas Tech, by the way, 95.6% win probability with under 3 minutes to go in this game. I mean, that's just not something that they're going to want to see this morning, but too little, too late. Hopefully it's been a couple days. I'll get over it. All right, so now, Gilbert, let's get into the national championship. You were very bullish on the Gators. So was I, for different reasons. I'm a Gator. Going into the NCAA tournament, as you see, their odds went back a little bit after that UConn game to like plus 350, plus 370. Now they're closing in on Duke, who is the favorite to win the national championship. Are there any teams outside of Duke and Florida you think that stand a chance here? Most people don't feel that way. They think it's either Duke or Florida that's going to cut down the nets on Monday night.
It does feel like it's going to be one of those 2 teams, but if I had to talk about another one, it would be Houston. I talked about the ability to make games ugly and win ugly against Duke. That's kind of the way you have to go about doing it. Houston's going to have their hands full with that matchup that Duke presents and the matchup problems, the size that Duke has. But we saw it yesterday. Houston bullied Tennessee, and Tennessee really just did not have a chance. And that's what Houston's going to have to try to do. Impose their physicality, try to make up for that lack of size. And if they can get past Duke, then I think they can do anything. So if it's not Duke or Florida, I think Houston, what it would take to get to the national championship, I think that would lead to winning a championship as well.
All right, Gilbert, we'll catch up when the spreads lock in, of course, for Saturday and Monday. Final Four in San Antonio, Texas. Saturday, you got the 2 games, and then 1 week from tonight, we will preview the national championship game and have our live programming exclusively here on SportsGrid. You can also read about all the previews over at sportingnews.com. Gilbert, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Enjoy your week. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up next, our SportsGrid NFL insider Adam Caplan joins us right now. The owners' meetings are completed, and now you have the NFL meetings going on at the same time. Hearing some big news, by the way, coming out of there. There's a report from Stephen Holder, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Indianapolis Colts are actually going to give Daniel Jones a shot to start this season. He and Anthony Richardson going to have a QB competition going into the summer and into training camp. Didn't see that happening, but here we are. If you want to learn more about our great programming and any of our shows, including Bracket Central, which again is coming up this Saturday, fantasy baseball programming, and all of our in-game live shows as well, just download the SportsGrid app. It's available for both iOS and Android. And by the way, by downloading the app, you can stream our network absolutely free. It's available against iOS and Android. Whatever phone you have, there's the QR code on your screen. Take out your phone and scan it before we take it off the screen, because we do have to take a break. And when we come back next, Adam Caplan was in South Florida this past weekend. He has a lot more to share with us on that. And also, have we seen the last of the tush push with the Philadelphia Eagles? We'll tell you next.
You are banking on a guy that's got one Sweet 16 berth in his career.
How many years has he been a D1 head coach?
What, I think 15?
18.
This clown is walking into that tradition. Let me tell you something, bro. You just stepped into the hot seat, because if you don't turn it around quick at Villanova, they're going to boo you out of there just like they boo you out of College Park tonight.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. This is our final day in March, of course. We've got the College Basketball National Championship coming up, and then we turn the calendar to the month of April. That means NFL draft time. So starting next week, we're going to be leaning on Adam Caplan a whole lot more as we get closer to the NFL draft. He's our SportsGrid insider covering the National Football League, covered the owners' meetings. We're going to get into the latest from that. Adam, it is great to have you back here on the show as the NFL is going to take center stage here coming up in a few weeks once again. But kind of taking some stage this weekend is this surprise here that, a couple months ago we had heard that there was one team interested in banning the tush push. Now there seems to be several that want to do this. So I guess I would ask you this, Adam. How does that happen? Not the fact if it's going to happen or not. I really don't care. How does it go from something that's very unlikely with, all the national reporters saying, it's one team, it's just one belief, to now all of a sudden, is there something going on behind the scenes? Is it like, some free breakfast given out, some car washes. I mean, I don't get it. Like, how all of a sudden is this lobbying taking place?
Right church, different pew. It's funny you say this, because that's actually part of this. There's lobbying around the owners' meetings with the competition committee. Although they don't, they'll discuss it, but it's really up to the owners to vote for it. But behind the scenes, you had the Packers that you mentioned. There are other teams that never were vocal, but I know for a fact they were backing the Packers on it, but they never made their voice vocal. But what's happened is, over the weekend, Craig, you had these preliminary meetings with the clubs, with each other, and with the competition committee, and some people spoke up. Some clubs spoke up against it, and that gets momentum. Now, I want to go back to the combine. I was told by a high-ranking NFL official that there was no movement for it at all to ban the push play. There were reasons behind that. First of all, the data that the NFL has does not suggest that that there's any kind of risk for injury any more than anything else. So that's why the league threw their kind of hands up, unless a lot of clubs are throwing their hands up and they don't like this, that it's going to stay. And right now, though, as we move forward here, there is some momentum. I could tell you for the last 48 hours, there's been enough lobbying behind the scenes, which is kind of what you're hinting at, to get some momentum to potentially, when they get a vote, but you need a lot of votes. You need in the high 20s to get this thing turned around. But I'll say this: I'm a little bit surprised by the momentum here. I could tell you from the combine, and this league official's high up there, and he said, "No, there's nothing going on here. You're whatever you're hearing is not true." I'm like, I didn't say that anything was going to change. I just wanted to know, is there any momentum? He goes, "No, there's nothing going on here." And now you push for like 5 weeks later, and I'm interested to see what happens when this comes to vote on Tuesday. I'd be surprised if it passes. We'll see what happens here, but there's a lot more momentum than I originally thought, Craig, to move this forward. I'm a little bit surprised at what's happened over the last 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah, it sounds like other teams are willing to ban this, but again, as you mentioned, this is not a 50-50 thing. It has to be a lot more significant than that to get something passed in the NFL. Okay, yeah. So the draft is really right around the corner now. At this point, we're going to turn the calendar tomorrow, and so this is the time of the year where all of the individual workouts are coming to a close, and we just basically focus on what the teams are thinking at this point. Ashton Jeanty was the best running back in all of college football last season. I don't think there's any argument there, but I suppose because of where he played or the system, I don't know. You'll have to tell me, Adam, why he wouldn't be the first running back taken. I don't get it. The guy was so good in college, breaking all these kinds of records. But I know Amari and Hampton is maybe considered to be a little bit more talented. Could two running backs go in the first round?
Yes, they're going to be two. I believe that strongly. It's funny you say that, because I have to do a mock draft, and I've done a couple of them, and I got one that's going to come up, or actually probably two before the draft. And right now I've got Jeanty over Hampton, but I could tell you, as I continue to poll teams, I know for a fact there's some teams have Hampton over Jeanty. Now, here's why. The all-22, the coaching tape, right, Craig? If you got to go through the totality of their careers. It's actually better than Jeanty's, Hampton's is. And by the way, he is a little bit more explosive. Hampton is than Jeanty. Both are really good, absolutely terrific running backs. I'm telling you, do not be shocked if Hampton goes over Jeanty. Now, again, we're just under 4 weeks from the draft now. We'll as you said, we'll be talking more about this. But every once in a while, things happen that you don't expect. Because as you were talking about, everyone just thinks that Jeanty's way better than Hampton. It's not true. I'm talking to NFL people, coaches and front office people. It's not true. I think there's a little bit of debate inside the National Football League right now on both players.
All right. It'll be fun to catch up with. Again, we're unfortunately out of time. Adam, thanks again for coming on. We'll check back next week. And then after that, we're going to go with you, at least a couple days a week to get ready for the draft itself. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, man. You got it.
All right. Adam Caplan with us. We'll be right back.
You're banking on a guy that's got one Sweet 16 berth in his career.
How many years has he been a D1 head coach?
What, 15?
18.
This clown is walking into that tradition. Let me tell you something, bro. You just stepped into the hot seat, because if you don't turn it around quick at Villanova, they're going to boo you out of there just like they boo you out of College Park tonight.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pat Evans is with us from Legal Sports Report. His interest in the NCAA tournament probably has come to a close with Michigan State going down. Pat, sorry. I know. Look, I mean, at the beginning of the season, if we told you you'd be appearing all year long again here on the show, your Spartans would get this far, probably be a little disappointed they didn't get to the Final Four, but, you know, I don't think you could complain.
No, I was disappointed for a few minutes last night, because when you get to the Elite Eight, the hope is there. But yeah, at the beginning of the season, we did not expect anything like this. So I'm over the moon with how the season went, and I'm really excited about next season already. So I'm going to talk to you about that all summer. So be ready.
Yeah, I mean, provided the portal doesn't go crazy or these NIL things, Michigan State's going to be a top 5 team going into the season. I mean, the other teams are losing a lot of players. Okay, story for another day. Let's start with our stories that we normally cover for you. By the way, you can read about these over at LegalSportsReport.com. Let's start off with the latest in Mississippi. Still trying to get this online sports betting going. What is the very latest? I know sweepstakes now involved. It seems to be a popular topic these days.
Yeah, Mississippi is a very interesting legislative season this year with sports betting and sweepstakes. I mean, sweepstakes is crazy. There's at least, I think it's up to 9 or 10 now of states that have introduced sweepstakes prohibiting bills. And Mississippi, the Senate was the first chamber in the U.S. to pass a bill that prohibits sweepstakes. Now, this comes after the House had already approved a sports betting bill to expand online because, of course, Mississippi has had in-person sports betting since 2018. So every year since then, they've been trying to legalize online sports betting, and you always get a little bit of kickback from the locally owned casinos who are saying, no, we're going to lose a bunch of money. We can't do this. Well, Casey Ure in his House bill had created a fund that would allow, the sports betting tax to help kind of make those local casinos a little happier and make up that revenue that they might lose. Well, the Senate didn't act on that bill, but they sent forward that sweepstakes prohibition bill. And the House said, well, wait a second, if you're going to do that, we'll go ahead and put our sports betting language in there. And then they passed it. So now this sweepstakes prohibition bill has the online sports betting language in it, sent it over to the Senate. The Senate said, well, we don't like that. So we're going to say no. We're going to invite you to a conference committee, and we're going to see what happens there. So right now there's 3 members from each chamber, 3 senators, 3 representatives. They'll go ahead and get together and bang heads together about, what actually can pass in Mississippi. Now this happened in the past and they just killed the bill. So we'll see what happens, whether or not sweepstakes just is prohibited or we go ahead and expand online finally in Mississippi. Again, they've been trying every year since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just a really interesting kind of back and forth, tennis match over there in Mississippi between the House and Senate, trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward in online gaming.
Yeah, it really is. And I think eventually this is something that could get done. And something else that may get done in the near future is this exclusivity that the Oklahoma City Thunder may have for betting in their arena. How did this come together, Pat?
So Oklahoma is just one of the strangest states to cover in sports betting, I think. The tribes have very, very heavy control over gaming, and they have a say in pretty much anything that happens related to that, even in the legislature, because of the tribal compacts that have been created. Now, we know back in 2020, Governor Kevin Stitt tried to legalize sports betting through two amended compacts, which then the state attorney general later ruled illegal. And because of that and some other things, the tribes and the governor have a terrible relationship, so much so that, legislators have tried and have said that they want to take over the compact negotiations with the tribes. And so then now in the past couple of years, we've had multiple legislative efforts, including one in 2023 by Representative Ken Luttrell, who actually did it again this year. His online sports betting language did get through the House in 2023 and didn't move anywhere in the Senate. And basically what's happening is you've got multiple bills introduced in the House by Luttrell, again, is a tribal exclusivity bill, which the tribes want. They want to control sports betting in the state. On the other side, you've got the Senate bill that gives, to your point, control to the Oklahoma City Thunder for online sports betting. The tribes, of course, can operate on tribal land and have control over that. And so now you've got these two bills that have crossed over in the chambers, and we're going to see what happens. Now, you throw the wrench in here of Governor Stitt, who has said he will veto any bill that includes tribal exclusivity. So that basically says the House bill is not going to go well. And he also said he didn't like any bill moving through the chamber. So even though the Thunder would have control, that he would probably veto that bill as well. Now, but the chambers could overturn that with 2/3 votes and see what happens there. But Stitt has also put out a plan that, has some support in the legislature that would open it up fully commercial to allow the state to give out licenses. So again, you've got two bills. They've crossed over the chambers. Now we're going to see what happens from there. But yeah, you've got one that gives the Thunder a license, and that's where the sports betting would come from. And then you've got one that would give the tribes and the state exclusivity. So any number of ways this could work out. I'm not holding my breath, though, just because of those tense relationships between the governor and the tribes. It's a back and forth that doesn't really have an end in sight, at least until Stitt is out of office.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that in Florida as well as California. No question about that. All right, let's go now to our friends in the north in Canada and talk about sports betting in Alberta. There was some discussion, I know, Pat, at the end of last year that they were going to try to get sports betting off the ground in 2024. They did not. And certainly now I think we're probably waiting to next year, but there definitely seems to be some optimism that that could be in the future.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, last year at the Canadian Gaming Summit, the Minister of Red Tape Reduction, Dale Nally up there said, we're going to launch commercial sports betting in Alberta. So, okay, that's great. We're going to try to get it off the ground by the end of 2024. Okay, that's great. But then by the time G2E rolled around in the fall in Las Vegas, we heard multiple people say, nope, this isn't going to happen. It's going to be pushed back into 2025. And now we've got finally have a bill introduced by Nally in the legislature that should set up the framework. Now, a lot of it is blank at the moment. There's no tax rate. There's no number of licenses. There's just a lot of questions left in the legislation. That'll get worked out, we're sure. But we've got multiple people saying, hey, maybe it'll still be in time for the late 2025. But then you've got some people saying 2026. So that's a long time from now. Basically, though, we do know it'll look a lot like Ontario, which is a wide open market. It's online casino. It's online sports betting. There's some in-person sports books, which I'm sure Alberta has quite a few casinos. So I'm sure in-person will be up there as well. But yeah, just a lot of questions remaining, including that timeline. it does seem like it's coming. Again, very much like Ontario, which is a massive market. There's more than 40 online gambling operators up there, and they started off slow, but they've grown pretty nicely over the last 2 years of having legalized open casinos. Of course, there are lottery operators in the other provinces that do allow for online gambling since 2021, when the parlay sports betting was phased fully, or I guess it was allowed to do single game event wagering. So anyway, Alberta coming along. They'll get there eventually, just a lot slower than they initially promised.
Pat, you back with us this week? What's your schedule here? You're not disappearing on us, are you?
No, I'll be back Wednesday. I thought about taking the day off after the loss last night, but I'll be back and maybe I'll bring some good news about the Spartans, because I know you care so much. You're so heavily invested because of me that I'll bring good news, hopefully.
I'm a little bit more invested, Pat, in the Gators right now.
Well, that's that's acceptable for now.
Just a little FYI. My Gators are going to the Final Four. All right, Pat, have a great Tuesday. I'll see you back here Wednesday on our next edition of NewsWire.
Yes, I will.
All right, don't forget you could read all of the stories that Pat and I discuss over at LegalSportsReport.com. They're available right now, and you can follow Pat on social media as he posts those stories as well. All right, coming up next, it's time to talk some hoop with Coach Young. At the beginning of the tournament, when he came on, he picked Houston to win it all. So his team is still alive, but now it gets a lot more difficult for them, as well as everybody else, as the Final Four is upon us coming up this Saturday. We'll be right back.
You are banking on a guy that's got one Sweet 16 berth in his career.
How many years has he been a D1 head coach?
What, I think 15?
18.
This clown is walking into that tradition. Let me tell you something, bro. You just stepped into the hot seat, because if you don't turn it around quick at Villanova, they're going to boo you out of there just like they boo you out of College Park tonight.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Coach Young is with us. Bracket Central has come to a close for at least the weekend. Of course, the Final Four is coming up this Saturday. Coach Young's team, we took at the beginning, Houston, still alive. I wonder if he's still bullish there or if he's going to pivot somewhere else. So we'll get into that. Coach, great to have you back. Great coverage, by the way, of the tournament. As always, you can take a breath now for a few days. By the way, before I get back to the NCAA tournament, maybe you don't even know this. I'm sorry to throw this curveball at you. Did you realize like this CBI tournament is like starting now or something like that? There's all these games going on this week. When did they decide to do this? Strange.
Yeah, there's some tournaments. There's another one called The Crown, which is kind of something that's linked with Fox Sports, which will be interesting because I'm trying to reach out to the people I know over at Villanova because Villanova's in there, but I don't think Kevin Willard's coaching it. I don't know who's playing in it, but there's still games to be played. But obviously the focus is on the games over the weekend and obviously the Final Four on Saturday.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just found that funny. I looked, I was like, wait a second, there's games today? Anyway, let's start off with Auburn beating Michigan State 70-64, the final. Janai Broome ended up having 25 points, an injury in this one. Hopefully it won't cost him any time this week, although it's really good that they got 5-6 days to get ready for the next one. Coach, Auburn was the best team in college basketball pretty much wire to wire until that last week of the season and then the conference tournament. They were probably going to be the favorite to win it all. If you look back and you take a look where they were in February, they slipped a little bit. Now Duke and Florida have sort of surpassed them. Do you feel like Auburn is a threat to win the national championship?
Well, it depends on what Auburn we get. Craig, let's be honest. If we get the Auburn that played yesterday versus Michigan State, 70-64, yes. Now, there were some touchy moments during the game, particularly when Janai Broome in the first half, when he went to the bench, a little bit of a struggle. They were up about 23-8. And then the second half, when Janai Broome looked like he got hurt a couple of times, looked like his shoulder he grabbed at one point, then it was his ankle. But obviously, he comes back in, bangs a huge three, 25 points, 14 rebounds, 10 of 13 from the floor, 2 of 2 from 3, and he showed why he's one of, if not the best player in college basketball. I would argue that Cooper Flagg is number 1, but Janai Broome is no slouch of being number 2. This is a kid that is taking advantage of going into the portal. The kid was at Morehead State. Like, think about this, what the job that obviously Bruce Pearl has done. They're playing better basketball. They're playing much better. You know, instead of that 3 out of 4 games that they lost at the end of the regular season, losing 2, winning 1 in the SEC, then losing the SEC tournament. They're a threat, but they're playing against a Florida team that's playing as good as anybody else. And that comeback that they had versus Texas Tech was pretty magical, being down 10, 11 points with about 4 minutes left to go.
Yeah, insane finish for the Gators there. By the way, putting a bow on Michigan State's season, overachieved again under Tom Izzo. 8 Final Fours over the course of his career. But I think even more impressive, 16 Sweet 16s at a school like Michigan State. This guy is a Hall of Famer whenever he wants to be and stop. There's no question about that. Disappointing end, I know. But, the way that I look at it, it was a great season for them, and they're bringing a lot of kids back.
Yeah, listen, that's why they changed the name from March to Izzo. Because when it gets to March, he always finds a way to get a run. It doesn't matter how good or bad his team is in the regular season. When they get to the tournament, they become extremely dangerous because Tom Izzo's the type of guy, Craig, let's be honest, that after timeouts, halftime, there's no one better at adjusting game plans quickly. That game got away from him early. And for the fact that they kept clawing back, yeah, of course they lost, but still a heck of a run for a Tom Izzo team that, let's be honest, we weren't expecting this before the season started.
Yeah, definitely not. Izzo gets to another Elite 8. Now, University of Houston, they're going to a Final Four. You mentioned that you thought that they had a great shot to win their side of the bracket, and they did. They beat Tennessee. This was not a competitive game, 69-50. So they covered that spread very easily. So let's get into it here a little bit. And first, let's talk about what happened at Tennessee here. I don't think that we really need to get too far into it. When you score less than 20 points and a half, you ain't going to win a college basketball game, Coach.
Well, simply put, the warden, a.k.a. Kelvin Sampson, put him in jail. What they did to those guards of Tennessee was nightmarish. I felt bad for him. But when you look at this team with Houston, obviously you look at the play of right here, Tugler, getting some points very early on. Obviously, Francis, another guy, rim protector, did a lot of things around the basket. But that guy right there, Emmanuel Sharp, hit 3, I'm talking dagger threes late in the second half when Tennessee was making a comeback. Of course, LJ Cryer and his play. Listen, what makes this Houston team different than any other Houston team is they got 3 guards. They got Uzan. They got obviously LJ Cryer, and they have Emmanuel Sharp. They have 3 guys that are guards that can create shots as a guard position, but then they also have Archino coming off the bench. And then they have bigs. What's going to be interesting in this game, Craig, coming up against Duke is it's really youth versus experience. And I'm not talking just about players. I'm talking about coaches. You can say all you want about John Shire. The coaching advantage is with Kelvin Sampson. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you want to talk about Hall of Famers like Tom Izzo? The guy that Duke's playing this Saturday night, Kelvin Sampson, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, along with the coach he beat to get to the Final Four, his good friend, Rick Barnes of Tennessee.
Yeah, definitely so. And Sampson's done a great job since he's been there. Final Four, backed up with 2 Sweet 16s, Elite Eight, Final Four. I mean, he's been in it every single year. And as Coach mentioned, Houston, 4.5-point dogs against Duke. That tells you the story. The odds makers think that could be a close game. You haven't seen Duke this short a favorite in any game in a long time. Duke's still favored to win it all, followed by Florida, coach's Houston Cougars, and then Auburn at 5-1. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Coach. I mean, I don't know if you are or
I'm
not.
not moving. I'm not moving.
I would say you're holding that ticket. Go ahead.
I'm not moving. I've been with Houston, you know this, for the better part of the last month. And I want people to understand that this team is the team that can hold you down defensively. Think about this, folks. They have 4 losses this year. 3 of them are to overtime. 3 in overtime. And the other one was a 74-69 loss to Auburn. So this team plays close games. I think they cover the 4.5. I think they sprinkle on the money line, and they roll their way to a national championship. It's the experience and the depth and the coaching. Kelvin Sampson finally gets his national championship.
Is it Houston, Florida, or Houston, Auburn?
Houston, Florida. And Houston will do what they do to everybody else. Put you in jail.
All right, Coach. We'll talk soon. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Greg.
We'll be right back.
You are banking on a guy that's got 1 Sweet 16 berth in his career.
How many years has he been a D1 head coach?
What, I think 15?
18.
This clown is walking into that tradition. Let me tell you something, bro. You just stepped into the hot seat, because if you don't turn it around quick at Villanova, they're going to boo you out of there just like they booed you out of College Park tonight.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Wouldn't you know, the first weekend of the Major League Baseball season, the news has been dominated by a bat, or several bats. Also, we'll get into what happened at Lone Depot Park with the Marlins yesterday and a whole lot more. It's time now we get ready to wrap up this Monday edition of the show with some last licks. All right, let's get it started here. If you haven't been paying attention to this, then you haven't been watching baseball this weekend. The New York Yankees put on an offensive show in the Bronx in their first opening series against the Milwaukee Brewers, including one game where they scored 20, was it, Frank, just 20? Was that the number? 20 runs in one game. Yeah, 20 runs in one game. And then put up another, I believe, 12 or whatever, 13. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were because I don't follow exact scores. But here's what I know. A lot of home runs were hit. A lot of them were hit by Aaron Judge. Some were hit by Jazz Chisholm, Cody Bellinger, and many others. Anthony Volpe as well. And then all of a sudden, news started percolating that some of the Yankees were using these different style bats that are legal to use in Major League Baseball. Right now, they're being called the torpedo bat. And for those of you who have not seen this bat, the barrel of the bat is what we would call the end of the bat. For those of you who are not familiar, not where you're holding it, but at the end, they're thicker in different spots on different bats because they did some science and data and found that some players hit certain parts of the bat harder, and they decided to have more wood on those parts of the bats. And so naturally, a lot of folks are correlating the success that the Yankees have had to that. Now, I don't know if that is the case because we don't have enough data. We haven't seen enough games. And by the way, Aaron Judge, who seems to lead the league in home runs every year, doesn't even use that bat. But others did, and others hit a lot of home runs. And apparently these were being used last year by some players and are being used by some other players around the league right now. So is this a story that we are complete on? Absolutely not. We have no idea. But needless to say, this story is not going away. We're just at the tip of the iceberg here. And stay tuned to see if all of Major League Baseball is using these sort of strange torpedo thick bats at the end. Kind of look like the bats we used as kids when we were 3, 4, 5 years old to play wiffle ball in the backyard. But they're having good success with it thus far. Just ask the Yankees. Brewers, not so much. All right, yesterday, a magical day at Lone Depot Park. What a series it was for the Marlins. Didn't think that we'd be back here on a Monday talking Marlins baseball here on the show, but here we are. The Marlins went 3-1. They had 3 walk-offs this weekend. Griffin Conine was the hero in several of them. Griffin Conine made an incredible home run-saving catch and then ended up hitting a game-tying home run in a game where his dad was honored and put into the Marlins Legends Hall of Fame yesterday. Needless to say, the Marlins are the first team since the Tampa Bay Devil Rays 20 years ago to have walk-offs on 3 of their first 4 games, and the Pirates are the only team in about 100 years to have something like this happen to them specifically. So I don't really know what's in the water right now going on with Marlins, but it definitely is good news for them as they welcome the Mets over the next few days. I'll be back at the park coming up on Wednesday for my next hit over on the network. But good job by the Marlins this weekend. Very exciting, close games. 3 games ending in walk-offs in the first weekend. You can't beat that. All right, finally, Deion Sanders. Is he going to the NFL? Is he going to the Cowboys? Is he going to leave Colorado? At least for now, it doesn't appear to be. And I don't have any view of this contract, what it looks like the next couple of years. I'm going to guess there's like an opt-out somewhere in this. I don't know. I haven't seen this yet, but he's signing a new contract with Colorado to stay. 5 years, $54 million. It was first reported by Brian Howell, who writes for Buff Zone. He's come on with us throughout the season. He also has a lot of incentives involved, including $450,000 for a college football playoff appearance. And if he wins the championship, folks, he gets $750,000 as the head coach of Colorado. Now, part of this also could be after a year, if he gets an offer to go to the NFL, he can leave. This is basically standard for every college coach. But the idea that that primetime coach prime Deion is like leaving now or next year even to go to the NFL, it just doesn't seem likely. You generally don't see this kind of contract given out and then they leave in a year. It's almost like this is the kind of money that you give to a coach to stay. So get ready for more Coach Prime in Boulder for the next, at least I would say 2 more years. And after that, remains to be seen. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report, Coach Young, of course, and Gilbert McGregor. Those were our guests here on the program today. In addition, our director, as always, is Luke, and our producer today is Frank, and Smiley Kaufman's coming up next. We got the Masters less than 2 weeks away, talking some golf with you, recapping this past weekend, and then Pharrell Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern, followed by Game Time Decisions, in-game live game day, and then Gabe has got you for all the Major League Baseball action, day games, night games on Sports Rage tonight. First baseball game of the day, 2 o'clock Eastern. So you do have day games here on the Sunday. That's good news. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday. See you tomorrow.